You know that feeling? You're supposed to be working or just relaxing, and suddenly you realize hours have just disappeared. Poof, gone. You've been totally lost in this incredibly detailed world inside your head. Well, today, we're going to unpack Katherine Andler's guide on exactly that. It's all about providing a real, clear framework for understanding, managing, and, finally breaking free from that powerful pull of excessive fantasy.
All right, so here's the game plan for today. First up, we're going to define what this daydream dilemma really is. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty, the triggers, the causes, and the real costs. After that, it's all about action. We'll look at some awesome awareness and grounding tools, figure out how to replace fantasy with real-world stuff, and then finally, wrap it all up into your very own personalized freedom blueprint. Let's get into it.
Okay, first things first. We got to start with the basics, right? This first part is all about figuring out the difference between just, a healthy bit of mind wandering and something more compulsive, like a real need to escape.
So we're not just talking about your mind drifting off during a boring meeting. Nope. Maladaptive daydreaming is something different. It's this pattern of really immersive, super detailed, almost scripted fantasies. And here's the absolute key. It's that feeling of compulsion, that sense that you actually can't stop or even pause it, even when a part of you really, really wants to.
Okay, so what does this actually look like day to day? Well, the guide points to three main characteristics. First, there's this constant nagging pull to just retreat into your head. Second, you feel genuinely upset, like irritable or distressed if someone interrupts you. And the third one, and this one is a big tell, it's when your real life starts to revolve around your fantasy life. You're literally building your day around these internal stories. To make this crystal clear, let's talk about Sarah. She's a graphic designer from the guide, and her story is pretty eye-opening. She started realizing her productivity was just tanking every single evening. And why? Because she was spending all that time rehearsing these super emotional conversations with mentors who didn't exist. It got to the point where the feelings from those fantasies felt more real and more important than anything happening in her actual life.
All right, so we know what it is, but the big question is, why? Why does this happen? And what's the actual damage? That's where we're digging into next, the triggers, the deeper causes, and the real-world impact. The guide explains this in two layers, which I think is super helpful. On the surface, you've got the immediate triggers, things like just having downtime or being bored, right? Or maybe feeling lonely or anxious. Even those little transition moments, like your commute or when you're home alone at night. But then, if you dig deeper, you find the underlying causes. And this could be things like being a highly sensitive person, or a kind of perfectionism that makes you crave a perfect fantasy world, or even past trauma, where daydreaming became a way to cope. So, how do you figure out your own patterns? The book has this really simple but honestly brilliant exercise called the trigger timeline. It's easy. You just draw a clock for your day, and every time you catch yourself slipping into a fantasy, you make a mark. And, this is the important part, you jot down what was happening right before or how you were feeling. After a few days, you'll start to see a pattern, and you can circle your top 3 recurring triggers. That's your starting point.
And look, let's be really clear about this. This isn't just some harmless quirk. It has real costs. The biggest one, of course, is time. Hours just gone. That, in turn, crushes your productivity. You're missing deadlines, putting off projects. It also chips away at your relationships, right? Maybe you're ghosting friends, or you're just not really present when you're with them. And on top of all that, there's the hit to your own well-being, that awful cycle of guilt and shame, and sometimes even messing up your sleep.
If you really want to see the impact in black and white, the guide suggests doing a week in review. It's straightforward. For 1 week, you track how often you daydream and for how long. Then you categorize that lost time. Was it from work, your social life, self-care? And here's the kicker. You rate your mood from 1 to 10 both before and after. Seeing that data on paper, it's powerful. It shows you exactly what the habit is costing you. Okay, so we've laid the groundwork. We know the what and the why. Now it's time to shift gears and talk about action. This next part is all about the how. We're going to get into some super practical tools for building awareness and, more importantly, for interrupting that fantasy loop before it really takes hold. This, right here, is where the real change starts.
What's great is that the guide offers a whole toolkit because, not everyone works the same way. If you're more of a pen and paper person, you can go with a bullet journal or simple charts. But if you're all about digital, you can use apps on your phone with timers or even just record quick voice memos to capture what's going on. Honestly, the tool itself doesn't matter as much as just being consistent with it. That's the key.
And this is what that tracking can show you.
check this out. A simple log like this is so revealing. You've got the time, the trigger. Here it's just mindlessly scrolling on your phone. It lasted 45 minutes. And then look at the mood. It went from a 4 out of 10 times down to a 2. That right there is a game changer. When you see with your own eyes that the escape is actually making you feel worse, that's some serious motivation to change things up.
So, okay, you've caught yourself drifting. Now what? What do you actually do in that moment? Well, the first technique the guide offers is called the body scan anchor, and it's basically just a mini meditation that's designed to do one thing: pull your focus out of the fantasy world in your head and back into your physical body, right here, right now.
And the best part? It literally takes just a minute or two. All you do is sit quietly and just mentally scan your body. Start at your toes and work your way all the way up to your head. You're just noticing any tension. No judgment, just noticing. If you find a tight spot, say in your shoulders, you just breathe into it for a second and then you move on. It is such a simple but super effective way to ground yourself back in the present moment.
But what if you need something even faster, like a quick snap back to reality? The guide has these awesome quick anchors for just that. There's the 5 sense check. Right where you are, name 3 colors you can see, 2 sounds you can hear, and 1 texture you can feel. Boom. Or you can do breath counting. Breathe in for 4, hold for 2, breathe out for 6. Just do that 5 times. Either one can pull you out of a daydream in less than a minute. It's fantastic.
Okay, so stopping the daydream is a huge first step, but it's really only half the battle, right? Because fantasy loves to rush in and fill a void. So if you just stop, you're left with this empty space. The next step is all about filling that space, but filling it with meaningful, real-world activities that actually give you something back. And the guide suggests focusing on 4 main areas here. First, connection. So instead of imagining a talk with someone, actually call a friend. Second, movement. Even a quick walk can totally shift your state of mind. Third, creativity. Doodle, journal, anything. And finally, and this is a big one, actual, real rest. We're talking about a guided meditation or something that truly recharges you, not the exhausting kind of escape that fantasy provides.
Now, how do you make these new things stick? The book shares this awesome little trick called habit stacking. It's super simple. You just take the new habit you want to build and you stack it on top of one you already do without thinking. So, for example, after you brush your teeth at night, which you already do automatically, you immediately write 1 sentence in your daydream log. By linking them together, the new habit just becomes part of the routine. So much easier.
But here's the thing. This isn't just about changing your actions. It goes deeper. You have to challenge the beliefs that are holding the whole habit in place. You know those core ideas that are always running in the background? Things like, my real life is just too dull, or the only time I feel valuable is in my fantasies, or that really tricky one, it's safer to feel pain in a daydream than to feel real emotions. We have to tackle those head on.
And how do you do that? Well, the guide gives us a classic tool for this called the Thought Record Worksheet. It works like this. When you catch yourself thinking one of those automatic, unhelpful thoughts, you write it down. Then you get to play detective. You list all the hard evidence for that thought and then all the evidence against it. And the whole point is to come up with a new, more balanced and realistic thought to take its place.
And that brings us to the final, and maybe most important piece of the puzzle. This is where we pull everything, all these tools, all these insights together. The whole goal here is to build one single, sustainable, long-term plan, what the book calls your very own personalized freedom blueprint. Think of this blueprint as your personal roadmap out. It's got everything you need in one place. It's going to have your specific triggers and your early warning signs listed out. It'll have your favorite grounding techniques ready to go. You'll have a schedule for your replacement activities. You'll even have notes on your new balanced thoughts. And crucially, it lists your support team, your friends, maybe an online group or a therapist. In the end, what this is all about, it's so much bigger than just kicking a habit. I mean, yes, as the author says, you get back all those lost hours, which is huge. But the real win, you get to rebuild your connection to yourself, to the people you care about, and to the actual amazing real world that's happening all around you.
And hey, the journey doesn't just stop here. There's always more to explore. You could dive into the neuroscience behind it all, check out great books on habit formation like Atomic Habits, or find an amazing community of people on the same path online. The most important thing is to think of your blueprint as a living, breathing thing, something you come back to, something you tweak and improve. You're building a reality that's way more compelling than any fantasy could ever be. It all starts with one small step. So the only question left is, what step are you going to take today?